All right, welcome everyone. We're so excited to have you here today for Breaking Binaries, Queer Abolitionist Dreamscapes of Bodily Autonomy. Before we kick off our conversation, I want to pass it to our incredible interpretation team, Thalys and Karen, to walk us through how to access Spanish interpretation live during this session.
Thank you so much. Muchas gracias. Buenas tardes. Yo soy Talis. Estoy aquí con mi cointérprete Karin y venimos representando a Tilde, la Cooperativa de Justicia y Lenguaje, y vamos a ser sus intérpretes. Vamos a estar interpretando este webinario del inglés al español utilizando la función de interpretación simultánea de Zoom. Hi everyone, my name is Talis. I'm here with my co-interpreter Karin, and we're here representing Tilde Language Justice Co-op. And we are going to be your English-Spanish interpreters during this session. We are going to be interpreting this webinar into Spanish using the Zoom simultaneous interpretation feature. Para acceder a la interpretación al español, para todas las personas que no sean bilingües en inglés y en español o que simplemente prefieran solamente escuchar en español, pueden entrar al canal de español si están aquí a través de una computadora. Debe haber un globito en la parte inferior en medio de su pantalla de Zoom que dice interpretación. Pueden hacer clic en ese globito y ahí van a poder entrar al canal de español. De nuevo, si son bilingües y quieren escuchar en inglés, no necesitan hacer nada, pero si prefieren escuchar en español, por favor adelante y entren al canal de español. Y si no están viendo ese globito o si están aquí a través de un teléfono inteligente o una tableta, pueden hacer clic en los tres puntitos en la parte inferior derecha de su aplicación de Zoom, tres puntitos que dicen más. Hacer clic en esos tres puntitos, seleccionar interpretación de idiomas y de nuevo ahí pueden entrar al canal de español. To access interpretation, just to repeat what I said in Spanish, if you're here via a computer, you can click on the little globe at the bottom center of your Zoom screen. You can click on that globe and there you can select your language of preference. If you're an English speaker, you can join the English channel. If you're a Spanish speaker, you can join the Spanish channel. If you're not seeing the little globe or you're here via smartphone or a tablet, you can click on the three little dots at the bottom right corner of your Zoom screen or your Zoom app. Click on those three little dots, select language interpretation, and there you can join the English channel or your channel of preference. And just a reminder to all speakers to please speak at a moderate pace, even a little bit slower, especially when we read. We tend to read more than twice as fast as we talk. So just a reminder, we're interpreting everything in real time into Spanish. So if you could take breaths, take pauses so that we're able to keep up and we don't miss anything, we really appreciate that. Por último, si hay algún problema con la interpretación, por favor díganos a través del chat y les ayudaremos en cuanto podamos. Lastly, if there are any issues with interpretation, please let us know through the chat and we will help you out as soon as we can. Muchísimas gracias. Thank you so much. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Thalys and Karen, for being here and for supporting us in prioritizing language justice in our space. So again, if you're just joining us, I want to say welcome to Breaking Binaries, Queer Abolitionist Dreamscapes of Bodily Autonomy. My name is Mickey. I use she and her pronouns, and I'm the Director of Movement Strategy at Elephant Circle. I'm joined by my incredible colleague, Anna Reed, and some of the most incredible organizers and visionaries we have of being on this call with this afternoon. Before we get started, just want to, again, offer some context of why we're here and why this conversation matters so much. In the last Breaking Silos session panel, Hands Off Mamas, it ended with, these systems are toppling and we need to be ready to imagine and build something new. This today is a place for building the roadmaps we need. And we need new voices and young people to be welcomed in as we imagine new architecture, care, and system supports that we need and deserve right now. Today, we're welcoming several panelists who have never been panelists before, people whose perspectives and voices are essential. We ask and expect that all of us here today will approach this conversation from a place of curiosity and openness, an abolitionist principle in and of itself, that we are putting into action. In a moment, our team is also going to drop a Canva play space, which you're seeing a preview of on our screen right now. This play space is meant for you as participants to ask questions, to process, to color, and to imagine this abolitionist dreamscape with us. We also are so grateful to be featuring an altar to queer resistance and family building, and are so excited for you to get in there and play with us. We wanted to open up our session today with an elephant circle ritual called a murmuration. And I'm excited for, in a moment, you to see this murmuration inspired by Octavia Butler. Yes, shout out to the panelists. Welcome to the murmuration and welcome to the session with us.
The child in each of us knows paradise. Paradise is home.
Home as it was, or home as it should have been. Paradise is one's own place.
One's own people, one's own world, knowing and known, perhaps even loved and loved, loving and loved. Yeah, every child is cast from paradise into growth in the community.
Into vast ongoing change. Octavia Butler, Parable of the Sower. So again, thank you for that beautiful reading of these words. And just want to open up so that our panel can introduce ourselves with hopefully something that can give you some insight into how we're bringing this piece by Octavia Butler into this conversation. So panelists, what is a cartoon, song, or space that reminds you of childhood joy or an example of what home is? And I can kick us off in saying that I loved Hey Arnold as a kid, and I still love Hey Arnold as a New York City stoop kid. It just reminds me of the joy and also the power that can exist inside a friendship.
I'm happy to go next. This is really hard because one of my the things that I love about my childhood is Christmas, and as an adult now, I still love Christmas. But when I heard this question, the thing that I thought about was out of the box. And I remember the imagination that came from the show that I try to use now as a parent.
I can share next. Um, I would say for me, a show that came to mind instantly was The Proud Family, one of my favorite shows to watch, a classic. And I don't know, it's just Black culture, Black excellence, and I really enjoyed it.
Well, Sophia the First is my favorite childhood movie. It makes me feel safe and warm. It brings back good memories. And I'm gonna just, I think of this show on Disney Channel called they weren't called the gummy bears. I don't know what they were, but they used to drink this juice and they was bouncing all over the place. They had a whole bunch of energy. And I could relate to that. So every time I think of that, it just brings back this warm, safe feeling.
I think for me, my dad used to make this like really slurpy, creamy pasta when I was having a really shitty day, particularly in like the tween years. Like when I think about returning to a place that feels like home, it's this like creamy pasta and it had peas and bacon in it. And that was mine. Also, I'm Anna. I use she, her pronouns. I'm also with Elephant Circle. It's a pleasure to be here. All right. Well, heads up, we may also be joined by Hailey. I know that she is currently having some tech challenges, so she might be popping on as an additional panelist momentarily, but
I got it figured out.
Oh, yay! I'm so glad.
For the most part, no guarantees it won't do it again.
Oh, good. Well, welcome, and maybe, John, we can get Hailey spotlit, and we'll go ahead and kick us off. Um, unless Hailey, you also want to share a little tidbit about childhood.
I'd prefer not to.
Cool, cool, cool. All right. So, queer communities have always built homes and systems of care outside of the state. I want to be intentional about naming one of my personal idols and people that has taught me so much in this work, Andrea Lucero, who is Elephant Circle's executive director and founder. They are a genderqueer visionary who has been in this space for decades and who has dedicated their life to not just coming to from a sort of defensive place to all of the harm that we know is out there, but proactively building new, innovative, and gorgeous circles of love and support around families. And today is about celebrating and learning from this legacy, as well as welcoming in new voices and visions into the conversation. And so I'm so excited to be here with this group. And I'm going to ask the first question. I'm wondering if maybe Zaira or Sadé wants to take this first one and answer the question, what is a binary that you want to see broken or shifted or composted in today's world?
I came ready for this question. So love to start. Hi, I realized I didn't introduce myself. I'm Sadé. I use they, them pronouns. Thank you all for joining us today. And thank you for setting the space, Mickey and Anna. I would say for me, and in general, the gender binary is one that gotta go. And also want to share a little bit about my experience as a parent, also a doula, amongst other things. But in this current political climate, as a gender expansive person, non-binary person, often the things that I'm negotiating with my partner, is how do we show up, right, in spaces, in everything from like a medical space, right, to like, what are we gonna do when we walk through an airport or the grocery store, etc. And I would love to share a little bit about my birth story. So, when I was pregnant with my first child, Luna, I developed eclampsia at the very end of my pregnancy. And I was rushed to the hospital, and it was all the things that you can imagine that eclampsia comes with. And when I came to, I was intubated, and I was not able to advocate for myself or share my pronouns or share anything about who I am and what I do and any of the things that I would share normally. And that was up to my doula and my partner. And it was really important that prior to that experience, as we were leading up and prenatal visits and all those things, that I really shared that it was really important for me to have my pronouns respected while I was giving birth and in my birthing space. But that also that people understood why it was important to like have these things, not just for me, but for everyone around, right? And so it felt very empowering to me, to wake up and hear, like my doula and my partner advocating for me to have these things, right? For my basic dignity and like human autonomy and all the things to be respected in a time that I was not able to have that. And so those are when I think back to like how negotiations happen and the things that come up, I think of that time, right? And then one other experience that I'll just share is I recently was able to luckily change my ID to have an X, which felt like such a big moment for me as an adult, and also a way to say that this is who I am and who I've always been. And I really, when I was, made the decision to do that and, affirm who I am on a piece of paper, if you will, it was both really empowering, but it was also really scary. And the biggest thing that came of that is me having to talk to my partner and look at the list of all the places that I'm not able to travel to because of this, right? Or all the states within the United States where X is not seen as a valid gender marker, therefore I'm not able to drive. And so that is like a huge impact on the way that I can live my life, both with my children and with my family, as I travel through the world, right? And so while again, like I want to live this joyful, beautiful world and life with my kids and my partner, abolishing all the things that need to be abolished, including the gender binary. These are the things that we're facing, right? And it's alive and well. Um, and even when we go to the doctor, right? It's like, am I the person that's going to speak and hope that our pediatrician or our doctor gets my pronouns right, or am I going to just let my partner speak, right? So it's a constant negotiation and back and forth, that we're navigating, as non-binary people in the world, and that it's a constant everyday questioning of what am I going to do for my safety? Is this safe for me to do? Is it safe for me to do this? How can I advocate for my child in a way that makes me feel legitimate and that I don't have to defend my positioning of why I do what I do? So I'll pass it over to Zara.
Hello, everyone. Zaira. I use she, her pronouns. Just to position myself a little bit, I know we're going to get into this in a bit later, but I'm someone who's impacted by the family policing system um, as a child. And when I think about like binaries that I want to see broken or shifted or composted, I really want to see the binary broken of fit versus unfit parents. It's something that's weaponized a lot by the family policing system to surveil and separate families, and especially Black, brown, queer, poor, disabled families. And I want people to start thinking about like what can we do to support families? What can we do to support parents? Because often the reasons for why parents are deemed unfit are neglect, which is just coded language for poverty, right? And so, like, if we can meet the needs of people, then we can stop this sort of narrative that some people are more fit to be parents versus others. And there's a lot of like research that has already been done on this, where organizations or communities have given money to people who are in need and they've been able to sustain themselves. I recently saw, I think it was in New Mexico a couple years ago, they changed their laws. I think it's if you make under a certain amount, they provide childcare, and they saw like how many people were like lifted out of poverty, able to like go to different jobs and just like grow in their careers and things like that by having a basic need met, like childcare. So that's something that I really want to see broken, because I think it's really harmful and just really breaks apart a lot of different families, and really again just to surveil people. And yeah, I just want us to think about what conditions are being created that are causing these issues, and also think about it from a historical context, right? Like this isn't something that, exists just here and now. This is something that was built and created over time. It's not a mistake. It's not by happenstance. It's entirely by design. And so that's what I would say when I think about binaries that I want to see broken.
Thank you so much for trusting this space with your stories, and speaking from such a place of truth and your own lived experience. I am wondering if maybe we start with you, Zaira, and then we can sort of get to sort of expand the question to some other panelists around like your experience within the family policing system and how you've navigated that. What feelings come up for you as you reflect on your journey moving through family policing? And are there kernels of wisdom, insight into, I know that when we were preparing for today's session, we had a really beautiful sort of reflection on the power of rage and rage as a motivating, uh, energizing force, even if it's sort of a tough feeling to hold. And yeah, curious if you have thoughts on in response to that question.
Yeah. So like I mentioned, I'm someone who was impacted by the family policing system, stolen by way of foster care and adoption, and was adopted pretty young. And all of this was pretty much due to My mom being deemed unfit according to the state, but my mom is also someone who is impacted by the family policing system. So that this has now become intergenerational, and that pain has continued, down onto me. And so when I think about like rage and grief and clarity, for me, I think the rage is something that comes up a lot when I think about like the lies that are told about adoption. There's this narrative out there that adoptees are supposed to be grateful and that it's this really like beautiful thing and that it's saving lives and all of these different things. And even before I really had language for that, like as a child, like that never sat right with me. I think because of like in part because of like my own experience, but then even just like thinking about it, right? Because of course, people who adopt, people who foster, they receive money to take other people's children. And it's like, okay, well, why can't we give that money to families to be able to support them, right? Why are we putting all these resources and energy into separating families when we could put that same energy into, keeping families together? And I think for me, like something that has come up more is like grief. As a child, there wasn't really space for me to grieve the loss of my parents, the loss of my family. It was just like, we adopted you, like, we're your parents now, and like, that's that. And so I never really had the time or space to explore like what it actually meant to lose both of my parents. And so that's a journey that I'm on now, one that I've been on for a few years now. And it's tough. I mean, there's a lot of grief for like the family and the future that was taken from me, right? A grief for like having to build these relationships with family like from the ground up. Like a lot of times it feels like strangers that I'm speaking to, even though, this is family. And I think I've also like received a lot of clarity in knowing that this wasn't an isolated incident. Like growing up, I didn't know anybody else who was adopted. And so it was just me and my thoughts trying to navigate the world. But just being able to connect with people over the past couple of years and just really begin to like understand and realize that this isn't just a one-off that happened, or this is by design, started with slavery all the way up to where we are today, right? And again, it's not broken, it's doing exactly what it was supposed to do. And all these systems work together, right? Hospitals, police, schools, CPS. I used to be a teacher, and teachers are mandated reporters, right? And that was something that I never subscribed to, nothing, something that I could never really get down with, because again, it goes back to like meeting those needs, right? Like, so for me, something that I did in my classroom was like, I would have snacks and have various like hygiene products and just different things to meet the needs of some of the things that they were trying to use as an entry point for child protective services. So yeah, I think that's kind of what comes up for me. And I think there's also a lot of grief around just like the loneliness that comes with it. Like, of course, we have the family policing system as a whole, and then we have folks who are adopted, folks who spent time in foster care. But I think even within those communities, there are micro communities. And so for me, as someone who like lost both of my parents, there's like not going to be a reunion. And so that's something that I have a really hard time with. Like I miss my mom every single day, and it's like that's hard, right? Because there are people around me who I'm very happy for that they get to be reunited, but it's sad like the years that I didn't get to spend with her because of the few years because of this system. So I'll leave it there, but that's what comes up for me when I think about those things.
Thank you so much for sharing, Zaira, and that makes all the sense in the world. That grief would also be a powerful emotion that comes up when reflecting on your experience in this space, or in this system. And isolation is absolutely, it's something we talk a lot at Elephant Circle about, isolation as a risk factor in a person's ability to navigate the system, and community can be so protective, in terms of both preventing the system from doing its work and also in the healing process that comes afterwards. Ashley and Tiny, I'm wondering if you would like to reflect as well on this question. We're blessed to have a mama-daughter duo in the space today, and I'm wondering if yeah, maybe you both would like to share on how you've the system and the feelings that come up for you too.
The worst part of being in foster care and in the system is moving around to house to house. I didn't have a stable home, especially from the age of 3 to 5. Like, you don't know what's going on. They might give you a house, but it's really not your home because the family, like most families adopt you when they already have kids themselves. So then you're always going to feel like the black sheep in the family. And for me, it was like I got adopted and it wasn't really my family. It was my brother's family on his dad's side of the family. So I really had no connection with them at all. So growing up, I always felt left out in some time for it. And like I felt mad and I felt sad, but I never knew why. I remember everyone growing up with what I wish I had, which was a parent, a mom, and a dad, just a stable, nice life that you would see in the movies, picture perfect. And my main thought was my mom. I always asked to see my mom grow up. That's who gave birth to me, like, obviously. I never expressed it, but the way I would was like tantrums, or I would just be disobedient, what they called it. I wouldn't listen to my adoptive mom or do what she told me. And I never knew why I felt that way, but I just knew I felt that way and I expressed it in that way. That is my amazing daughter, Tiny. Um, this is generational, like Zaira mentioned. Um, I too was in the foster system and aged out at 18, and only to come back and have my children removed. 3 of them through adoption and a third party custody. Um, honestly, it's really fucking exhausting and irritating and uncomfortable to be sitting here on a panel next to my child talking about how the system has impacted us, like how we've navigated this, right? This wasn't what I had in my vision as a mom. I thought that I would be able to raise my daughter and do all the things that I wanted to do, but um, that's not what happened with us. And, being someone, that was in the system at a young age, I had my first child while I was in the system. I was raised by my grandmother, a single woman, had to become licensed when they put that law out, the Adoption and Safe Families Act. She had to become a licensed foster parent in order to keep me and my siblings together, right? I think about how we've navigated the system, like we're still navigating it. We're in a place where we are strangers, and things have been, relationships have been bruised, and we're in this place of trying to reconcile, and trying to relearn, what love is and what family is, and also unlearn, um, because there's been a lot of negative narratives, right, about parents and how they what we do or what they've done to not have us. And so we're in the repair and reconciliation healing part of the navigating the system. We are reunified right now, but we are still in the grips of like it's not, I still don't have any rights, but my child is back with me. So we're still navigating how to have a parent-child relationship when we have no legal cushion or leg room.
Thank you both so much for being here today. And it's extremely powerful to hear both of your voices in this conversation, and to see the ways that that power, Ashley, and is like right here with you, next to you, and the ways that you have just such a powerful speaker and advocate that is emerging. And it's this next part of the conversation is going to get more to that healing piece and what can we do instead of the system. Before we segue into that portion, I want to check in to see, Ashley, if you're able to come off mute and share about your experience navigating the system. I know that you've been navigating some Wi-Fi challenges, and it's totally fine if you're not able to hear us right now. I'll give it a 1, 2.
Are you talking to me?
No, sorry, Hailey. Did I say Ashley?
Sorry. Oh, because I'm like, huh? Okay.
No.
Go ahead, Hailey girl.
Yeah.
I am so sorry. My phone's still acting up.
No apology is necessary at all.
So we're talking about our experiences with the system.
Yeah, and how you've navigated it. And are there either emotions or feelings that you've found have that come up
Give
for you?
me 1 second.
Okay, totally fine. We can also circle back.
So my experience with the system has been nothing but, excuse my language, hell. Just being moved from place to place, not really being able to socialize. They even took my baby away, and it's just hard living with strangers.
That makes
That's the easiest way I can put it.
loud and clear. And want to draw out an echo that came up in Tiny's perspective on the system. Like the hardest part was was not having that anchor in home and being moved from place to place, which is a painful but also
No, it feels like every time you get used to a new place, they move you.
Mhm.
And they don't always have placement for you. Like currently, I am in a hotel because they do not have placement for me.
Looking forward to contacting you right after this and seeing if there's a way that we can wrap some extra community care around you as you navigate this transition, which is so hard. And I don't know if you can see Ashley making a giant heart, but that is exactly how I feel right now. And you're not alone in this.
Thank you.
And that community care is like what we're here to learn about. That's the bulk of today's conversation is how can we wrap every single young person, every single queer young person, every single family that deserves care and love at home. How can we do that without the system? And so I'm going to pass it over to my lovely co-host to bring us through this next question.
Thank you. So honoring that rage, that grief, that healing, the repair work that needs to happen. Want to talk a little bit about what we can learn from the past and the present and into the future about the ways that people have built families outside of the state, the way that aunties have stood in the gap, the way that that cousin that's not really your cousin, but is your cousin, shows up to be there for you and with you, and all of the ways that people who have been systemically like targeted by these systems have continued to build family in radical and expansive ways. And for folks that are here as attendees, the play space has an altar to this family building that we invite you to add to if there are examples that you all are drawing inspiration from. But wondering, Sadé, if you would kick us off here. What are you learning, or how are you drawing inspiration from queer family building, past, present, and future?
Yeah, thank you for the question, and thank you all for sharing on the panel. I really am sending y'all hugs and love and all the things. I know this is not easy. Um, and I think for me, the thing that I'm learning and trying to also build myself is both an understanding that I get to heal while I also parent. And that there's moments of all the things that were already shared, right? Like there's joy, there's grief, there's restoration, right? There's a learning and unlearning, right? And I think about like often the small revolutions of things that happen in the home, right? That no one else gets to see, but that are the biggest things in our lives, right? When we think back to it. And as someone that is a cooperator and a proud worker owner, I think about cooperatives, right? And like cooperative living and what it means to be part of the solidarity economy, and have and see people that not just own their businesses, but like own their work and own their homes and own their labor and their, just parts of their lives, right? That often are dictated by other people and other things. Um, I think that one thing I'll share is like I grew up with a really young parent who was also like learning and navigating the world and trying to understand how to have a child at 19. And so oftentimes I think about our lives and how we grew up together, right? And are still growing up together. And what that means in terms of like me finding parental and mother figures in other people and in other spaces that have guided me to where I am now. And also having, a father who was incarcerated, and having to navigate that system and learning like parenthood and parenting can look different even now, right? I get to create a family, both chosen safe spaces that I'm a part of, that feel like home to me, and that are enough for me that I also get to share with my children, right? And that has been the most important thing that I've learned, is that in those pockets of people that I find that I get to introduce to my children, that I get to show my children to, and that they get to be around, that they understand that they can be their full selves, right? And what I've learned most again is really understanding that those people that allow me to be my queerest, blackest, like quirky, big energy, all the things, right? Those are the people that deserve to like experience me and experience my family in all the complexities of it. And when I think to the future, like a place, the thing that I hope to see, right, is families reunited, right? There's so much happening in the world right now. I cannot express it enough. And people who have been separated as we speak right now. And like, it's just a continuation of all the things that have happened, right? And the thing that I want to be true, and that I fight for on a daily basis is one, for example, like Luna, I'm not as old as she is, which is, a little toddler. I'm not um taking away the emotion that she sees in me when I see things on the internet that make me cry, right? I'm telling her these are the things that are true. I get to protect your joy, but I need you to know that the world is not on our side right now. But it will be, right? And how do we fight for that, right? It's creating the things that make us happy here while also informing her that like when she now wrestling fan is my daughter's a wrestling fan. When she's yelling like burn it down, like she needs to know what we're burning down, and that it's important for her to understand that these systems and the things that we talk about that I fight for, are part of me trying to build a future for her, right? And build the things that she should see and the freedom that she should feel and have, right? And overall, like I think in queering and like queering the future and queering just the spaces, right, looks like bringing all of the complexities of us while building the families that we want to see and fighting for those that are not together right now.
Thank you, Sadé. So powerful. People that allow you to be your queerest, blackest, quirky, big energy self. That's it. That energy.
Mikey, I think we lost you briefly.
You're nothing.
Oop, maybe you're back. You skipped out for a minute.
That's because it was just too much power. Zoom could not contain it.
Too much.
Ashley, what and Zaira, or anyone else wanna chime in on this question? What are we?
Yeah, I'll jump in. The power, yeah. Power to the people. Oh, first, before I say something, I just want to just tell Hailey, I love you so much. Love, love, love you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, so to answer your question, the system tries to tell us that, what a family should look like, but we decide what our families look like. Excuse me, I have a cough. The system tells us that a family is a father, a mother, but that's not what a family looked like. That's not what my family looked like. When I was a kid, right, the system tried to say my family wasn't right and it wasn't fit. I didn't have my dad. I was a kid in the system. Um, my mom needed support. She was a single parent. She had her own struggles. Um, the system said that my mom wasn't allowed to see us anymore in regards to visits, because at this time we're in the system. So my grandmother had to take custody and become a licensed foster parent. Just and she already had custody of us, but because my mother had these other children born in the late 90s, it changed the narrative of the family story. So now all of us kids have to enter into a dependency where my grandma became a licensed foster parent. And just thinking about how like my grandmother continued to like piece in, visits with my mom, with our siblings, other siblings who are being raised by their fathers, keeping us having those sibling contact. My grandmother also had her own health problems. And she was criminalized, for that. Like they tried to take her foster care license away and tried to deem her as unfit when she's just trying to step in and support her grandchildren. And as a parent, the system terminated, my rights. They tried to tell me that I couldn't have a relationship with my kids. Obviously, the youngest one sitting right next to me, right, with her gorgeous face. And and here I am, rebuilding the relationships with my kids. Um, Even when adoption papers were working against me, saying that you are not the parent anymore, right? But if and I'm every day, and it doesn't always feel like it, but I'm reclaiming, my family. I'm reclaiming my identity. I'm reclaiming myself. My parenting, my identity as a mother. As a strong Black woman, right? Um, and if I think about queer family building as resistance, then we know that Black people have always been in the business of queer family building. We have always created our own families. Being a parent of a child who has expressed being queer taught me a lot about patience and acceptance, right? When you are a parent who has a child experiencing that identity, you truly get to understand that people are not possessions. And how can I offer love and grace and mercy to others if I can't offer that to my own kids? This was a huge like awakening for me, you know. My kid, right? My kid was taken. Now my kid is back and talking about their own life, their own identity. How do I come into alignment with that, right? And not collision. And I'm grateful to have had the experience of being um in this in this in this moment with my daughter when she is, learning who she is, and exploring that, right? And not criminalizing her or judging her or ostracizing her, really wanting to grow closer to her because I've longed for her for so long, I don't give a damn if she wasn't wanted to be a cat with a hat. You know what I mean? Like, that's my baby. And I like, and it really, this has really taught me, like, I do not have power or say over people. Like, she is her own person, and I have to respectfully accept that, or I will push her away.
So beautiful. Thank you for sharing that, Ashley. So want to pass the mic to the young folks that are here, the youngest among us, because we really believe that it's important to be led by young people, by your brilliance, by your visions for the right now and for the future. And so, Tyonni and Hailey, this question is specifically to y'all. What would it look like to build safety and care for young people that doesn't criminalize parents or expand systems that we know don't help and continue to cause harm? What do you feel like you wish you had, that you wish you had in the past or right now? And how can we contribute to a world that puts you all at the center?
Who did you call, Tyonni or Hailey?
Whoever wants to jump in first, but you off mute. You here, Tyonni?
The system can't help you. The system will just try to control you, but they can't. Your mom is your own person. You are your own person. Nobody can control you, and especially you as a child. See, one thing I learned about being in the system is they try to make it seem like you're supposed to be in a picture perfect life, like out of a movie, out of a 1960s movie, if you know what I mean. Like, and that's what kids grow up thinking. They grow up thinking they're supposed to have a mom, a dad, a sister, a brother, a dog. Like, they're thinking they're supposed to have a picture perfect life. And then that just mentally messes up a lot of kids. And then kids need someone to talk to most of the time. Why? Because especially if you grow up in foster care, oh my gosh, you need somebody to talk to. But you don't just want no mandated reporter. You don't just want no therapist. You don't just want no somebody that legally is supposed to be signed to you. You want a companion. You want somebody you could actually trust. Somebody that's not gonna go run their mouth when you tell them something, even if it is a bad thing. But you're not telling them because you want that person in trouble. You're telling them because you want to get it off your chest so you could work better on it and not let it happen again. Because sometimes it doesn't have to end where it ends up at, as long as you just keep working on it, without somebody running their mouth and going to tell a police officer or something. That's what messes up a lot of kids these days because they just want somebody to talk to. And if I could just piggyback off her real quick, thinking about what could it look like to build safety and care for young people, I think about, it makes me really think about, and she touched on it, the mandating reporting part, right? Like, don't nobody want to, even outside of systems, nobody is going to go share with someone they think is going to go tell the whole entire neighborhood. You know what I mean? And yet we have systems that collect collateral and have all this information. I don't know what that information is, right? And they get to pass it around, and you don't really know, like you don't really know what they're reporting. And you know, it just makes me really like concerned when we talk about safety and stuff, because the system really treats kids like they're like these little animals from like the pet shelter. That. This is not that. These are real people. These are human beings. This is not property. She is not a piece of property with a price tag on it. This is my child who has a name and an identity and stuff, right? But when I think about when the possessions are turned into adults, right? Like this was once a little child who was so cute, and we're going to change her name and we're going to give her this whole new life. But once these symptoms of being separated from her family start to manifest, these little possessions grow into adults, and now they become criminalized, right? And shamed and blamed for how they've suffered without getting the treatment they needed, and then how the system like just continues to blame them and hold them accountable for something they absolutely don't even know what's going on, you know? So just thinking about like, the safety and stuff, like ending that mandated reporting, you know, and really like, really what does like community look like, and what does safety look like for us today? Because that can mean so many things to so many different people. We're survivors of so much. You know what I mean? That's why it's important to meet people where they're at individually, and then you figure out what safety is for them. Ask what their access needs are. My access needs are different than Tiny's access needs. You know what I mean? My view of safety might be different from hers, but we're both equal to having a safe space, right? So how do we bring that into alignment? But thanks. Next person. Thanks.
I feel like instead of them like immediately assuming we're bad kids just because they read our file, and most caseworkers put every little detail that you do into that file, that most foster homes won't take kids that they think are going to be a problem. So I feel like instead of doing that, they should actually like let us meet the foster parents first and explain our side of the story, because they do put every little bad thing that you do into your file, and they don't normally put the good things that you do in there. And they are very quick to point fingers. And I feel like instead of being like, oh yeah, this is court mandated because you don't want to do it, they should actually listen to us and see what we want to do. It's just messed up because I don't see how they can sit there and take you out of your home, even if it wasn't a safe environment, but then control every little thing that you can do. Like, they won't even let me go to my friend's house. And they sit there and they're like, oh yeah, you can't do this. I don't think it's right that they can just sit there and keep you in a house if you don't want to be there.
100%. And yeah, it strikes me that we're living in a moment where parents, kind of no matter what they do, are under this magnifying glass of disapproval, where people are going to have their parenting decisions judged and then criminalized when there are additional levels of marginalization at play, and that sort of systemic discrimination piece comes in. So we know, for example, that right now parents who connect their children to access to gender-affirming care can be characterized as abusive parents, just like parents who deny their children access to gender-affirming care can be characterized as abusive by this system. And so, what does that say about where we are in today's world, in this country, that both sides of that coin can be portrayed as abuse? And so, I want us to focus really on how can we, instead of continuing down this path of punishing and scrutinizing parents, connect them to new systems that are fundamentally structured around love and support for both parents and kids. So the whole family getting that love and support that they need. And I'd love to pass it to Zaira if you're able to come off mute first.
Yeah. So I mean, I think we we got to stop trying to rely on or look to the government to support us. Like at the end of the day, like we're all we got. So I think really leaning into community care, and building off of that. I think we're going to talk about this a little bit later, but like thinking of like mutual aid networks or having different collectives. Like here in Orlando, we have like food justice. So just kind of like thinking about what those needs are that often come up in terms of like what is considered neglect, and thinking about how we can meet those various needs for people. And that's going to take us coming together, right? It's going to take, sometimes being uncomfortable or, sacrificing or doing all these different things to meet the greater good of people. And really like asking people like what it is that they need, because what we think someone might need might not be what they actually need, and making an effort to meet those needs. Um, I think something else I was gonna say, I just lost my train of thought. Um, yeah, so I think also um like universal access to healthcare, like access to childcare, disability justice, like all of these things matter. Like the entire identity of who a person is and who people's kids are, like being able to meet all of those needs is something that we have to continue to work towards if we're going to build something that looks different than the current system that exists. Um, yeah, I think that's all I'll say for now.
Thank you. So powerful. Brilliant. Sadé, curious if you have thoughts that you want to add.
Oh yes, there's a list. Um, no, but I think the universal healthcare I think is like top tier, like 10 out of 10 recommend. Um, I yeah, I think about the amount of debt that I still have from my first child, and the debt that still exists right now for my second child, right? Um, and that I'm like, I don't know when this is gonna get paid off. Like, this is an exorbitant amount of money to have a child that brings me so much joy, both of them, and like so many things. And that I shouldn't have to like choose between like filling my fridge and paying this debt because I don't want to be harassed by a debt collector. Like that, those are the things that we're negotiating, you know? Um, and when I think about the systems that, systems and protection, right? Like I feel like that is also in contradiction with each other in itself. But I do one of the things that came to mind for this question was Elephant Circle created a really great birth rights toolkit that outlines like the things to think about and look at when in this political climate. And one of the things that I really started to think about after my experience with Luna is not just how I want to live and birth with my child, but also like how I would want to die, right? And I only had that thought because it was almost true with Luna, right? And so when I was going into my second pregnancy, I really thought about like who are the people that I want to make decisions for me if this was a time for me to go, right? Who are the people that I would want in my child's life to carry my legacy forward, right, with my partner, and to make decisions around my body and like all of these things that I think we often don't talk about, right? And that as a non-binary person, I'm like, yeah, there's things that I don't want to happen to me after I die, right? And that I don't want, these things to occur. And so the protections is like, you know, how are we both family building for like emergencies when emergencies happen, and how we wrap around the family, like you were saying, Anna, like when things happen and like when parents are going through things that are not punitive, right? Or like pointing a finger to say like you messed up. Oh, did I freeze? Okay. Okay, cool. Okay, cool. Yeah, that, that allows people to feel like it's not going to be punitive, and that it's going to be actually supportive. And that it allows for people to think about not just the now, right? Like, I think that, I mean, parental leave is another thing. I'm like, there's a list. I think that um, it feels very unrealistic to be at work right now with an almost 3-month-old. Like that just feels, I'm like, I don't even know. I still have postpartum brain, right? Like, how do I think correctly, And but that's the reality, right? Some people go back to work as early as 6 weeks. Or sometimes the weekend after, right? And as a doula, like I've seen these things, and it doesn't allow for healing, it doesn't allow for bonding, it doesn't allow for a great start of families. Um, and so while there is like such long of a list, I also think that at the very minimum, it's really having a deep understanding of one, meeting people where they're at, which I think somebody said on the panel, and taking into account that as people, if you have like parents in your life, like that it is a continual work to check in on them, right? Like things don't end when the child goes to school, or if even if you have a second parent in the household, right? Or, like as a child gets older, you are also learning to parent that child that is that age. You know what I mean? So it's a continual conversation of like, how do I show up for these families? How do I show up for these times and spaces, right? And how do we prepare ourselves if something does happen, right? I think it's something that we don't often talk about, of like, yes, these are all the ways that I want to live, and these are all the ways that I would want my children to be taken care of if I'm not here. So those are the things that I think about.
Um, hmm, sorry, I have like a little cough. The movement haters trying to not let me talk. There's an energy. Um, excuse me. But yeah, so thinking about reimagining, we cannot have this invisible line that separates children and parents. I'm tired of that shit. And I'm about to speak on that because there's this like them versus us type of thing happening, right? And we need to be able to hear the perspectives of all children and of all parents. You know what I mean? There is not just no one narrative or one story or one version. Everybody's story matters. Everybody's perspective and experience is accepted. That's what truth telling is, right? We need to center the voices of young people. Center the voices of young people. Young people say stuff that's really clever, brilliant, and authentic. And I love the fact that my kids are back around me, right? Because it keeps me on my toes and I have fun, when I as an organizer, right? As a person with lived experience, wanting to like bring young people involved, using their lingo, um, the YNs, right, Zaira? I know I probably shouldn't say that on the thing, but look at my daughter, like that's our thing, that's our community. You know what I mean? That's our stuff, right? And they know who I'm talking to. Ain't no shame in my game. I know where I come from, okay? And we need people who have been impacted. Look, she said clock it, okay? We need that. Like, don't nobody want to be hearing that washed up old dried up stuff people is talking about. We keep hearing the same thing over and over and over. Where's the young people so that they could give us some fresh perspective, because they're the ones that's closest to the problem. They're the youngest ones and they're closest to the problem. So they're gonna have that raw grit and it's gonna come out. You know what I'm saying? And I'm ready for all of it. I want all the smoke. I've been doing my healing work, okay? So I love the young people. I'm here for it, and they need to share their story. We need to put them at the center of the work. We need people who have been impacted to be able to give input to people in power, okay? People who've been impacted, right? That has done some healing work, because the healing work is it's mandatory. Just like there's mandated reporting, there's mandated healing. You just have to do the work. And I feel like I'm about to like preach or something, so I gotta come up out of this like velour jacket. But like you have to do the work so that people who've been impacted with lived experience, we can show up to people in power. We have the language, we have the demeanor, we have the energy, right? We have the facial expressions, and we know how to like them darts that they might use against us. We know how to like swing it back at it like a boomerang, right? We need more people to stand on the front line that has the language and that has the capacity and the bandwidth. I'm an abolitionist, and we need to abolish this fucking system. And I can't say that shit enough. And we need to create spaces for healing. We need to move this stuff out of the way, and we need to bring in more doulas, more spiritual folks that have the capacity that these systems and people is talking about is too much and they're so scared. Like, get your weak ass out the way and let somebody with some strength step up and hold us. Cause like you're in my way and I got some work to do with my kids. And I don't want to hear how you can't handle what we went through. You're not the person for the job. Sayonara. And we need to resist, right? Resistance is made to seem aggressive. I've been called aggressive all my life. I'm an abolitionist. I was born to be an abolitionist. Um, we've been made to seem aggressive and disrespectful just because it goes against the norms of white supremacy, right? The system criminalizes people for trying to be strong, especially Black and brown girls. If you have some education, if you have some power behind you, community, they will beat you down. It's like a gorilla on your back and them trying to push you under your thumb. Resist, 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 stand on your 10 toes and get your lick back. Educate yourself, heal, right? And then come fight on the front line. I don't know what your position is going to be in the work, but we are hiring. Okay? That's it, Nikki.
Mic dropped. I don't want to talk after that. We should end it now. I love everything that just came out of your mouth, Ashley, and want to uplift a lot of the different solutions that folks named. Like the reason why we don't have those already is the way that white supremacy is baked into our legal system and the ways that the laws are upholding the wrong things on purpose by design by the people who made those laws and passed those laws. And so our next question is zeroing into the legal concept of parental rights. Which sounds like it would be protective in the context of family policing. But what we tend to see is that instead of providing the protection that's so needed when kids are taken from their parents, instead, parental rights are most fiercely protected and upheld when they're being weaponized against young people who are seeking access to essential reproductive health care like gender-affirming care and abortion care. And so this next question, I'm wondering if maybe Sadé or Ashley or Sadé or Hailey would like to kind of start us off on how have you witnessed the legal framing or this idea of parental rights being used to control people instead of protecting them? And how have you experienced this mechanism of control over care? Yeah. Whoever's feeling called to go first can come off mute.
I mean, after that, I kind of want to give space for Hailey to share first, and then I'm happy to go.
Go for it.
Okay. The way that I've seen it being used against us is, see, I was originally told when I got pregnant that I couldn't have an abortion, but I also would not be able to parent, which it is illegal to take away a baby without cause. And then I had her, and then they ended up having a meeting deciding if I'd be able to keep her or not, which that's not okay because I didn't do anything. And I was still in the hospital when they had this meeting. I was in the hospital with my newborn baby for a week and a half because they did not have placement for us. And then all of the foster homes that I went to after that had hotlined me over stuff that they could have helped me out with. And then they had taken me from my aunt, and then I was there at the office, the children's division office, for a night, and they said that they saw quote unquote concerning behaviors, and they took my baby into protective custody, which I don't see how they can do this because I did nothing wrong. And it's just so weird how they can sit here and say that I couldn't have an abortion, but then make up all these lies and hotline me over little things.
It's amazing how backwards and harmful the system is. And this is exactly why it's so important to like call out these paradoxes. Like, we're not going to give you access to your bodily autonomy and practice your right to choose whether or not you want to pursue the pregnancy. And then we're also not going to allow you to parent. Sadé or Ashley, wondering if one of you wants to build
Can
on.
I add on really quickly?
Just Hailey, go for it.
I also did not want to have her because I was 15 when I found out I was pregnant. Freshly 15, put back into the system, and I did not know it was going to happen. And I knew something like this was going to happen. So, yes, I wanted an abortion. And no, they would not let me have it because another kid in the system is more money for the state.
Sadé, do you mind if I just jump in real quick?
Go for it.
Because Hailey, baby, I'm with you, sis. And I was 15 when I had my child in the system. And I just want to say, Hailey, I am with you. I'm with you. I'm with you. I cannot wait to meet you in person and put my arms around you. You are me. I'm just listening to you. Oh my gosh. I was a mom at 15, and I was incarcerated, you know. And I was told, and I was taken to the abortion clinic to get an abortion. They expected me to terminate my pregnancy without any family or anybody around and take me across town. And in my mind, I'm thinking like that's like some type of surgical procedure. I was already in trouble for being pregnant in the first place, right? Because I was a kid, you know what I'm saying? Like from far as my family. And then when I didn't cooperate and get the abortion when they took me from juvenile, like imagine waking up in the morning after breakfast and you're taken and shackled up around your pregnant stomach and handcuffed, and then your ankles shackled up, and you're marching, like this to a band to be taken to a public facility to terminate your pregnancy, and no one around you to support you. And when you deny that, you're taken back to the detention facility, and you're ripped of all of your communication, no phone privileges, and you're ordered to stay in your cell for long periods of time. And you're a domestic violence survivor, right? And I think about, how the state picks and chooses when, parental rights are, like when they're important to who and when they're not. I wasn't allowed to make, even when I had that child, I wasn't allowed to make decisions for that child, because I was in the system. So like when there was conflict in the home and I wanted to pick my baby up and leave, right? The police would get called because that's what happens when in order to like get people to do what you want them to do. They think calling the police was going to do something, and it did. And what it did was it said that because you are a ward of the state, you're not allowed to just up and leave with your child. So even though I had a child and I was 15, I'm being parentalized while I'm trying to parent my child. You know how crazy that is? So imagine this kid, growing up knowing I'm his mom, but don't really like it's just way too many people trying to give orders and make decisions without giving me that autonomy. That was my child. That was my life, whether I was young or not, and whether people thought I was incapable or not. I needed to learn that, and I need the support to be able to make those decisions. And like I said, the state picks and choose, where parents' rights matter, and it's not consistent. And when the system doesn't like something the kids are doing, they say, that the parents are doing something to the kids, or let's take the parents' rights. And I'm just, it's really like whiplash, and it changes the personality of people because it doesn't stay the same, and it's abusive. It's abusive. I've been with abusive people, so I know abuse when I see it. So everything you can imagine about, I mean, just like a woman and a man beating on a woman, right? And he has power and all the money. The system is the same thing. They have all the power, all the money, all the language, and they get to make decisions. And when you do not do what they say, they will put you in your place and they will show you who's boss. And that's what they tried to do with me and my family. By taking my rights to my kids.
Thank you, Ashley. Couldn't agree more that this is about autonomy and our sovereignty to make decisions over our own lives. And I want to just name that even though we're nearing the end of this conversation and there's so much work and resistance to do, something that Zaira said earlier is this system is working exactly as it was designed to. And in order to really imagine what comes next, what comes in the ashes of this system, what comes when this system is the fertilizer for the new world that we're building. We know that parents and young people and queer folks are at the center of building this new world. I want to ask folks, what is one way that you're building a new world in your family, in your home, in your community right now that we can leave folks with as a reminder of what is possible?
I'm happy to kick us.
Oh.
I can go ahead and then I'll pass it over. I think for me, one is definitely having an understanding that the things that I'm fighting for right now are the things that I hope to leave both my children with in the future, and that's the reason why I'm fighting. And so when I am proclaiming and protesting and saying like Palestine deserves to be free, it's because I also understand the interconnectedness that it means for them to be free. It means that we are also free.
I'm an artist. I'm doing poetry, drawing, singing, and playing the ukulele. I express myself through art. I like doing it because I can express how I feel. Growing up, I was always able to talk about how I felt, but as I got older, I got more quiet and more hard to tell people what I felt. So in a way that I got better at doing that is playing the ukulele, singing, writing poetry, drawing, painting, doing stuff like that. I could talk, but I don't have to talk. I can write it out or I can sing it out. I can, sorry. I hope this helps others do the same because at the end of the day, nobody should really have to be mad or like, throw tantrums, if you know what I mean. Like, there's no need to ball yourself up or take any type of substance and drown yourself in your own feelings when you could just do that. Because I'm not gonna lie, I was getting somewhere until I started singing and writing and doing that type of stuff and just being more connected to my spiritually. Spirit, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? But yeah, like just more mentally involved with myself and more like connected to me spiritually. You know what I mean? Yeah. I can't say it right
Spiritually.
now. Yeah, spiritually. But yeah, like I tuned in and I kind of just calmed my inner child down because it was just full of rage and it was just crying, it was hurting, and it just needed some type of hug or something. So I hugged myself and I sat back and I just took my time and relaxed for a minute.
Yeah, so I think for myself, similar to Tiny, I'm also a creative, and so for me, a lot of that has been through truth telling, holding space, through collective care, just like reclaiming our stories, because so many times, like our stories are told by somebody else and not through our own lens, and the stories get changed. And I think there's something really powerful about being able to tell your own story and just put truth to power against the systems that tried to like silence us and erase us and all of these different things. So for me, I host a podcast called Adoptees Crossing Lines, where I share about my own experience as someone who spent time in foster care and was adopted. But I also speak to other people who have been a part of the system as well. I have an interview with Ashley coming out very soon. And also interview like other people who practitioners and folks who are other folks in the movement space who are working to abolish the system as well, because I think there's something really powerful about storytelling. I think there's a lot of like freedom in that. There's a lot of healing in it. And so that's one of the things that I do. And also through that, like community has come out of that. Like I've been able to connect to so many people, and people have shared like, their experiences and like how, it has helped them to navigate like their own journey with the system. And to me, that makes it all worth it because like it sucks to feel alone, and I think about, even like when I was a kid, like I didn't have anything like this. So I was just like sitting alone, like with my thoughts. And so I think it's important for people to be able to like have outlets where they can tell their story because you never know like who that might connect to or like who that also might help heal. So that's one of the ways that I try to build a new world.
Thank you for these examples. And y'all make sure to tune in to this powerful podcast episode. I can't wait for it to come out. Thank you, Sadé, Zaira, Ashley, Tyonni, and Hailey for this powerful conversation that I know is going to be just like seated in my heart for a very long time. Want to close us out by just naming that together in community is where this work happens, and that abolition is not just about what we're breaking down, but what we're building towards. And together we're envisioning abolition as part of our radical imagination, as part of our circles of protection and support. And we hope you'll join us in that.
Including on the next chapter of this webinar series on July 15th at this same time. It's also a Tuesday. We will be having our next gorgeous panel, which I'm so excited about. So please join us July 15th for Breaking Borders, Amplifying the Interconnections Between Immigrant Justice, Family Policing, Abolition, and Reproductive Justice, which I know will also be a gloriously powerful conversation. Want to say, yeah, one last giant thank you to every single one of our bold and brilliant panelists. It's been a gift to share space and speak with you today. Everybody, I hope you have a beautiful and easeful rest of your evenings, afternoons, depending on where you are in time and space. And we'll see you next time. Thank you so much. Bye, everybody.